The waiting room of Dr. Julian Vance wasn't antiseptic, it was curated. It felt less like a medical office and more like a high-end, hushed gallery in downtown Manhattan. No sterile white, just deep jade velvet, polished cherry wood, and the faint, expensive scent of sandalwood. I smoothed the skirt of my perfectly acceptable power suit, a silent concession to the fact that, even here, under the guise of seeking help, I still had to project control. But the truth was, I was crumbling. Lately, sleep was a battlefield, and my usual hustle had turned into a frantic scramble. My doctor called it stress. Dr. Vance's reputation suggested he'd call it something deeper. When the heavy door opened, it wasn't a brisk nurse, but Dr. Vance himself who emerged. "Ilara, please come in." His voice was a low, resonant baritone, the kind that didn't just speak to you, it enveloped you. He was easily the most attractive man I had ever seen in a professional setting, maybe ever. Not classically handsome, but compelling. Sharp cheekbones, intelligent eyes the color of iced bourbon, and dark hair that looked like he'd run his hand through it just once, perfectly. He wore a crisp, tailored suit, and as he extended a hand, I felt a ridiculous, childish spike of panic. His handshake was firm, warm, and lasted just a beat too long. A jolt went straight up my arm. "It's good to finally meet you, Ilara. I've read your notes. Now tell me, what brings you to me today?" he asked, gesturing toward a leather armchair. He didn't sit behind his massive desk. He took a seat opposite me, leaning forward with an air of complete, intense focus. He hadn't asked a simple medical question, he'd asked a challenge. I swallowed, the elegant setting suddenly feeling like a pressure cooker. I am suffering from severe insomnia. My GP suggested therapy, but I feel like I'm already juggling enough. I need a fix, doctor, a game changer. He smiled, a slight, slow curve of his lips that didn't quite reach his eyes, and it made the air feel suddenly thick. "A fix? That's very American of you, Ilara. We want the result without examining the engine. But I don't treat symptoms. I treat the source. And the source, in your case, is fascinating." He didn't take notes. He just watched me. His gaze so penetrating, it felt less like observation and more like a physical force. It stripped away the suit, the title, the pretense. It made me feel utterly exposed. "You're a high achiever, successful. You've built a wall around yourself so high that even you can't climb over it to rest. Is that accurate?" "That's incredibly accurate," I whispered, feeling a strange mix of terror and the most exhilarating validation. This man saw me. "Good. Now, I need to do a brief physical check, just to rule out any organic causes for the anxiety," he murmured, his tone shifting back to the purely clinical, yet somehow even more intimate. He led me to the examination table. He placed his hands on my shoulders, guiding me to sit. His touch lingered, warm, heavy, and authoritative. He took my pulse at the wrist, his thumb resting gently against the delicate skin. The rhythmic pressure was supposed to be a medical check, but the low-level hum of sensation it sent through me was utterly seductive. I could barely breathe. Then he moved behind me. "I want you to take a deep, slow breath, Ilara," he instructed, his voice now right next to my ear. His breath was warm against my neck, sending a shiver that had nothing to do with medical concerns. He placed his palms flat against my lower back, right where the tension always knotted. He pressed down, firm and steady. "Do you feel that? That release?" The clinical pretense was razor thin. It was the most sensual touch I had ever experienced, precise, dominating, and entirely justified by his title. It felt like he wasn't just adjusting my spine, but aligning my very soul with his will. In that moment, I felt safe, seen, and utterly, perilously in his power. "Yes," I managed to say, the word catching in my throat. I didn't just want a fix anymore. I wanted whatever he was offering. I wanted more. He stepped back, the warmth instantly gone. "We start tomorrow, Alara. Your case is entirely unique, and it requires my undivided, consistent attention." The appointment was set for the following evening, and the interim hours were a blur. I couldn't focus at work. Every email, every meeting felt like noise compared to the quiet intensity of Dr. Vance's office. I kept touching my wrist where his thumb had rested, replaying the moment his hands pressed into my back. It was ridiculous. I was a grown woman, a boss babe, obsessing over a doctor's professional touch. But it hadn't felt professional. It had felt proprietary. The next evening, the atmosphere was even more charged. Dr. Vance had changed his attire, a soft gray sweater over a white shirt, somehow making him look both more approachable and infinitely more dangerous. The session began with what he called guided sensory alignment, which to my 29-year-old brain sounded like fancy jargon for mind control. "Sit here, Alara," he instructed, placing a plush velvet cushion on the floor near a large south-facing window. "Cross your legs. Now close your eyes. Relax your shoulders. Good." He took a position right behind me, close enough that I could smell the faintest trace of his cologne, cedarwood and something sharp, like a whisper of smoke. Then his hands moved. They weren't seeking pain points, they were simply resting. He placed one warm palm flat on the back of my neck, just below my hairline, and the other lightly on my shoulder blade. These were not therapeutic adjustments. They were simply presence, heavy, encompassing, and impossible to ignore. "You're fighting it, Alara," he whispered. "I can feel the resistance in your muscle fibers. You need to surrender. Trust me to hold you still for a minute." The command was soft, but the weight of his hand felt like an irrevocable authority. The sexual tension was palpable, non-explicit, yet everywhere. It wasn't about what he was doing, but that he was doing it, and I was allowing it. It was the thrill of the powerful man taking charge and the compliant woman melting into the role. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against the quiet air. He maintained the contact for what felt like an eternity, breathing slowly, deliberately. I felt every rise and fall of his chest against my back, every tiny shift of his weight. When he finally lifted his hands, the relief was immense, followed immediately by a sharp sense of loss. "There," he said, moving to sit across from me again, his eyes dark with an unreadable intensity. "That is the beginning of trust. You need to come here every single day this week, no exceptions, no canceled appointments for work. If your current life is the source of the chaos, we must insulate you from it completely until you are stable. He was demanding my time, demanding my focus, and demanding my obedience. It was a massive imposition, the kind that should trigger alarm bells. Instead, I felt a profound sense of relief. Someone else was in charge, someone powerful who saw me. "Understood, Dr. Vance," I replied, the words soft, almost a pledge. "Julian," he corrected, his voice a low command. "Call me Julian, Ilara. We are past the formalities. Our work is too intimate for titles." The transition from formality to using his first name, Julian, was seismic. It didn't feel earned, it felt bestowed, like a private access key. And once I had it, I felt an almost immediate obligation to meet his escalating demands. My life instantly shifted. My daily schedule, once dedicated to deadlines and conference calls, now revolved entirely around the precious hour I spent in his calming, controlling presence. During a session focused on emotional detox, Julian began gently picking apart the people in my life, always under the guise of therapeutic necessity. That colleague, the one you mentioned who always throws shade at your presentations, she's a stressor, Ilara. She's leeching your energy. For the next 3 weeks, I want zero interaction. You need silence to hear yourself heal.
Then it was my oldest friend, Clara. She challenges you constantly, Ilara. You need unconditional validation right now, not debate. She's an anchor dragging you back to a version of yourself we are working hard to leave behind. I knew, logically, he was isolating me. The part of my brain that was a successful professional screamed, "This is textbook manipulation." But the lonely, exhausted part of me whispered, "He knows best. He sees the toxic drama I was too swamped to recognize." He was meticulously cleaning up my periphery, clearing space for just one voice, his. And it felt less like being controlled and more like being purified. One rainy Thursday, after a particularly intense session where he had me describe my deepest childhood fears, Julian didn't charge me for the hour. Instead, as I was gathering my coat, he reached into the pocket of his suit jacket. "This is for you," he said, holding out a small velvet box. My breath hitched. "Julian, I can't accept gifts. It's not professional." His eyes held mine, that bourbon gaze was so close, so piercing. "It's not a gift, Ilara. It's a therapeutic anchor, a reminder of the stillness we found today that you can wear. When the chaos of the outside world tries to pull you away, you simply touch it. It connects you back here, back to me, back to your peace." Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a single highly polished piece of black onyx. It was elegant, expensive, and absolutely personal. "Turn around," he commanded softly. I obeyed instantly, presenting the back of my neck to him. I felt the cool brush of the silver chain against my skin, and then the warmth of his fingers as he fastened the clasp. The movement was slow, deliberate, and entirely intimate. His knuckles brushed the sensitive skin just below my hairline. For a dizzying moment, I imagined his hands lingering there, caressing me, and the rush of forbidden desire was overwhelming. When he stepped back, he looked at the necklace resting against my collarbone. "It suits you," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "Keep it close. Keep us close." I left his office that night feeling cherished, chosen, and utterly branded. I was wearing his control, his constant reminder, right over my heart. Every time I touched the cool onyx, I was no longer grounding myself. I was reaching for him. I was his. The professional facade was now paper-thin, transparent, only to the two of us. We both played the part during the day, the dedicated patient, the authoritative physician, but the undercurrent of intimacy was an electrical current running between us. The necklace, his therapeutic anchor, never left my neck. Every time I touched the cool stone, it was a reminder of the secret we shared. A secret that was quickly becoming the single most thrilling part of my life.
The boundary shattered completely 2 weeks later. It was late on a Friday. I was curled up on my sofa, attempting to catch up on a binge-worthy show, but my focus was zero. My mind kept drifting back to Julian's office. The phone rang, a restricted number. I almost never answered those, but a deep, instinctive pull made me hit accept. Ilara? The sound of his voice, low and unexpected outside the confines of his practice, made my entire body stiffen, then instantly relax into submission. "Julian, is everything okay?" I whispered, my heart slamming against my ribs. "Everything is perfect," he corrected, a soft amusement in his tone. "I just had a moment of concern. I was thinking about your stress levels going into the weekend. I needed to ensure you followed my instructions for winding down." The lie was so thin, so deliciously transparent. He hadn't called about my stress. He had called because he wanted to, because he felt entitled to access my private life, and I loved it. We talked for almost an hour, not about my therapy, but about anything and everything. Art, music, the sheer grind of life in the city. He didn't ask personal questions. He made profound, insightful observations about my character that left me breathless. "You are so much deeper than you allow the world to see, Ilara. You're a vast ocean, and everyone else just sees the predictable tide pools," he murmured, the sound rich with genuine admiration and possession. Then came the moment. "I need to see you," he said, the lightness completely gone, replaced by a sudden, non-negotiable demand. "I'm close to your neighborhood. I need to be sure you're truly settled." 10 minutes later, he was knocking on my apartment door. I opened it to find him standing there, still impeccably dressed, but with a different intensity in his eyes, a hungry, barely contained flicker. "I know this is inappropriate," he said, stepping into the threshold, closing the door behind him with a decisive, heavy click. The move was quick, efficient, and left no room for protest. "But my clinical concern for you overrides convention." He didn't move toward me. He simply stood, radiating power, pulling me across the floor with only his gaze. I felt a dizzying flush of heat. "Julian, this is necessary," he finished, stepping forward finally. He didn't touch me with his hands. Instead, he reached out and gently brushed a stray curl of hair from my cheek with the back of his fingers, a feather-light, devastating caress. Then he leaned in, his imposing height overwhelming me. His mouth moved close to my ear, his breath warm and intoxicating. "You belong here, Ilara," he whispered, the words a low rumble that resonated through my entire body. He pulled back, his eyes locked on mine, waiting for a reaction. I couldn't speak. I was trembling. The implied threat, the absolute possession, the devastating proximity, it was the most electrifying moment of my life. He didn't kiss me. He didn't need to. He had just claimed me with a whisper and a touch that tasted of sensual power play. He stepped back, turning to leave. "Good night, Ilara. I'll see you Monday, and we won't mention this again. This is our secret." He was establishing the rule. We are intimate, but we must lie about it. It cemented our bond, making us co-conspirators. He had forced me into silence, guaranteeing his control, and yet I felt profoundly desired. The shared secret from Friday night was a potent drug. I floated through the weekend, the memory of his breath on my ear and the demand in his eyes replaying on a loop. I was wholly consumed, dizzy with the realization that my intense, controlling doctor was just as intensely obsessed with me.
When I returned for my Monday session, the air was thicker than ever. Julian was all professionalism, but his eyes held that dangerous, possessive knowledge. During a break, while Julian stepped out to grab a glass of water, a rare breach of his self-imposed control, my gaze landed on a beautiful, antique medical journal sitting open on his desk. It wasn't the text that caught my eye, but a loose, faded photograph tucked inside the pages, almost used as a bookmark. It was a picture of Julian, younger, perhaps 5 or 6 years prior, standing beside a woman. She was strikingly beautiful, with a delicate, fragile quality. But what made the blood instantly turn cold in my veins was the way he was looking at her, the exact, profound, proprietary gaze he leveled at me. More chillingly, the woman in the photo was wearing a necklace. It wasn't the onyx one he gave me, but it was similar, a small, dark, elegant pendant resting exactly where mine did now, a therapeutic anchor. A sharp, sick wave of clarity hit me. This wasn't unique. This wasn't just about me. I wasn't the exception. I was the type. The high instantly crashed. The sensual touches, the whispers of devotion, the feeling of being uniquely seen, they suddenly felt like they were part of a script. My dependency felt less like a romantic tragedy and more like a terrifying manipulation. He hadn't just cleaned up my periphery, he had paved the way for a pattern. When Julian returned, I was sitting rigidly, the panic bubbling just beneath the surface. He noticed instantly. "What is it, Ilara? You've retreated," he observed, his voice smooth but his eyes narrowed. He moved closer, his proximity no longer comforting, but suffocating. "Nothing," I lied, too quickly. "Just tired." He didn't believe me. He moved around his desk with the fluid grace of a predator. He placed his hands on my temples, his fingers gently but firmly cupping my skull. The touch, once intoxicating, now felt like a vice. "You look distressed. Are you letting the outside noise creep back in? Have you disobeyed my instructions?" His voice was low, laced with disappointment and a subtle thread of threat. I fought the urge to recoil. "No, I'm following every single step." "Good." He stroked his thumbs across my forehead, a deeply intimate gesture designed to soothe, but which only fueled my growing alarm. "Because any attempt to pull away, Ilara, would be catastrophic for your progress. You are so close to the breakthrough. Don't sabotage yourself. Don't be shady." He was smothering my doubts with renewed intensity, painting my fear as my own internal failure. He lifted the onyx pendant with a careful finger, tracing the smooth, cool stone. "This keeps you connected," he reminded me, his voice a low, deep promise. "We are connected. We are one project, Ilara. Don't try to leave the lab." The message was clear. My freedom was an act of betrayal. He had perfectly masked his possessiveness as profound care, but I had seen the ghost of his past, and now I knew the intoxicating control was simply the method of his madness. The fear that had been an exciting spark was now a consuming, cold dread. The chilling realization that I was part of a pattern, a potential past that echoed my present, didn't shatter my obsession, it simply changed its focus. The dizzying pleasure of being controlled morphed into the cold, calculated thrill of being a spy in my own life. I was still operating under Julian's spell, attending my daily sessions, absorbing his profound insights, and wearing the onyx anchor. But every interaction was now a performance. I was a method actor playing the role of the compliant, devoted patient. My professional background was in research analytics, which meant I was naturally meticulous and knew how to dig. The first thing I did was leverage my old contacts. My official search was focused on my vague stress ailment, but the real hunt was for any sign of Dr. Julian Vance's past, specifically any connection to former patients or previous practices in the US circuit. I couldn't just Google him. His online presence was meticulously clean, the kind of curated digital footprint that screamed, "I have something to hide." The internal conflict was a constant, exhausting war. One minute I'd be sitting across from him, feeling the heavy, sensual pull of his gaze, needing him to touch me, to command me. I would mentally review the steps I needed to take that evening to find evidence against him, and the next I would panic, terrified that if I exposed him, I would lose the only person who truly saw me, the only person who made my life feel rich and deep. My own desire for his authority was the greatest obstacle to my freedom. One evening, my research hit a goldmine, an old archived forum post on a mental health board from 5 years prior. The post, signed only as L, mentioned a brilliant but dangerous doctor in Seattle who had abruptly shuttered his practice after a scandal involving emotional dependency. The poster, signed only as L, mentioned a specific, highly unusual aspect of the treatment, guided meditation that focused heavily on isolation as purity, and, crucially, a small, dark piece of jewelry given as a therapeutic anchor. My hands shook so violently, I had to reread the lines 3 times. Elle wasn't just a patient, she was the woman in the photograph. The next day, I went into my session armed with this terrifying confirmation. I was outwardly calm, but my body was coiled. Julian started the session by asking about my dreams. "They're fractured," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "I keep dreaming about things being hidden, things that look beautiful on the surface, but have deep, dark secrets underneath." He watched me, his expression unreadable, yet intensely focused. "That's excellent progress, Alara. Your subconscious is trying to reconcile the dissonance between what you show the world and what you truly are. We must remove the deceit." "Yes," I agreed, leaning forward slightly, making the onyx pendant swing. "Removing the deceit. Is that why you ask your patients to cut off their friends, to eliminate any other voice that might interfere with your truth?"
The air froze. I had crossed a line. It wasn't an accusation, it was a subtle, loaded question. Julian didn't blink. His charming smile evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp precision. "Is that what this is about? Someone you cut out is trying to gaslight you, Alara? Trying to make you doubt the process? That's precisely why I insisted on the isolation." He rose and walked toward me, his movements slow and deliberate, magnifying his imposing height. He stopped right beside my chair, too close. He placed his hand, heavy and warm, on the back of my neck, just as he did in the early sessions, but this time it felt less like guidance and more like a clamp. "You are questioning my dedication," he murmured, his voice deep and dangerously soft, "and that is hurting your progress. I see everything you do, Alara, everything you hold back. Don't test the limits of my commitment to your recovery. You are too vulnerable to handle the truth on your own." It was a veiled threat, a chilling confirmation that he knew I was digging. But the physical contact, the deep resonance of his voice, still sent a confusing, powerful tremor of desire through me. Even as I feared him, a toxic part of me craved the full force of his disciplinary power. The tension between us was a living thing, thick and poisonous, yet intoxicating.
I continued my act of devoted patient, but beneath the surface, I was frantically pulling the threads of Julian's deception. The fear was a constant, sharp companion, but it was overshadowed by the exhilarating knowledge that I was finally the one holding the ace card. I had successfully contacted Elle, the woman from the archived forum and the photograph. I didn't get a full confession, but I got enough. Elle confirmed the pattern, the isolation, and the terrifying, non-explicit intensity of Julian's control. Crucially, Elle gave me the specific details about Julian's abrupt departure from his previous practice, a settlement paid out under the condition of absolute silence. I now had the ammunition. I just needed the right moment to fire. Julian, sensing my calculated distance, decided to force the issue. He sent a late-night text, not a casual check-in this time, but a summons. Ilara, immediate session, 10 p.m. This cannot wait. Your resistance is critical. The message was a gauntlet thrown down. He knew I was pulling away, and he intended to use one final, devastating session to break me entirely, to reassert the intoxicating power of his authority. When I arrived, his office was dark, lit only by a single, expensive-looking floor lamp that cast deep, dramatic shadows. The professional setting was gone. This was theater. Julian was standing by the window, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He didn't greet me. He simply turned, his eyes burning with an intense, proprietary frustration. "You've been sandbagging me, Ilara," he stated, his voice devoid of its usual therapeutic lilt, raw and accusatory. "You are withholding. You are allowing outside influence to corrupt the beautiful work we've done. I will not allow you to destroy yourself." He walked slowly toward me, the hunter closing the distance. The air felt suffocating. "I know the source of your anxiety," he murmured, stopping inches away. His eyes dropped to the onyx pendant. "It's the knowledge that you cannot function without me now. That dependence is terrifying to your former self, but I need you to embrace it. It is your salvation." He lifted a hand, intending to cut my cheek, a gesture I once craved. I instinctively took a small, almost imperceptible step back, breaking the trance. His hand dropped. The slight rejection ignited a dangerous spark in his eyes.
"Don't do that," he commanded, his voice low and firm. "Look at me. You're trembling. You need my hand on you. You need to be held accountable." The control was at its apex. He was demanding submission, physically and mentally. This was the moment I had feared, the complete loss of my autonomy. But I wasn't the weak, lonely woman who first walked into his office. I was a strategist now. I lifted my hand and gripped the onyx pendant, but instead of using it as an anchor, I used it as a target. "You're right, Julian," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in my chest. "I am dependent on the truth. And the truth is that this isn't about my progress, is it? It's about your project. It's about the pattern." I let the word pattern hang in the charged air, watching for the break in his composure. It was instantaneous. His sharp features froze, the control momentarily slipping. He looked genuinely shaken, a terrifying mask of vulnerability. "I don't know what you're talking about," he tried to deny, but the conviction was gone. "Seattle, Julian," I whispered, holding his gaze with all the terrified resolve I could muster. 5 years ago, emotional dependency and a substantial settlement paid out for silence. And Elle told me about the therapeutic anchors. I had turned his own weapon, the secret, shared intimacy, against him.
The powerful, magnetic force of his authority shattered instantly, replaced by the panicked fear of exposure. He lunged forward, not in anger, but in a sudden, desperate attempt to reclaim the narrative, to physically impose his will. He didn't grab me, he seized my shoulders, his grip tight, almost bruising. "You have no idea what you're doing. You are unstable, Ilara. This is a relapse. You need me to stop this investigation before you destroy us both," he hissed, his face inches from mine. The intense, forbidden proximity, the raw power of his hands on me, the final desperate command. It was the most terrifying and sexually charged moment of our entire relationship. He was trying to love me and control me back into silence. But the fear of Elle's fate was stronger than my desire to yield. I stood rigid, refusing to yield to the pressure. "The session is over, Julian," I said, my voice quiet but absolute. "My recovery starts now." I broke his grip, stepping back and walking toward the door, not running, but walking with the deliberate, reclaimed control of a woman who had finally found her off-ramp. I didn't run. I walked. That slow, deliberate movement away from Julian's office was the hardest, most necessary action of my life. I left behind the jade velvet, the sandalwood, and the terrifying, intoxicating control of the only man who had truly made me feel alive in years. I didn't call the police. That was Julian's genius. There were no bruises, no explicit crimes, only a trail of fractured, emotionally dependent women and a history of well-paid silence. Exposing him would involve admitting how completely I had surrendered my own will, a humiliation I couldn't yet face. Instead, I used the leverage I had. I sent the documented evidence of his settlement anonymously to the medical board that licensed him in our state, along with a cryptic tip about the pattern of isolation. The consequence wouldn't be jail time, but professional ruin. It was the only revenge that mattered to him. Within 2 weeks, Dr. Julian Vance's practice was abruptly closed, a subtle notification tacked to the ornate front door about an unexpected sabbatical. He simply vanished, fading back into the elegant shadows from which he emerged. The silence was deafening, but it was my silence now. The months that followed were a grueling, lonely period of self-reclamation. I cut off the remaining ties he had insisted upon, the friends he labeled toxic, the projects he called draining. But this time, I did it for myself, guided by my own shaky compass. The independence was hard-won, but it tasted like victory. I went back to a real therapist, one who sat behind the desk and maintained appropriate professional distance. The physical scar was the missing weight of the onyx. I had ripped the necklace off the moment I reached my car, tossing it into the nearest storm drain. A dramatic, almost ritualistic severing of his claim on me. But the psychological scar remained, a ghost limb where his control used to be. The sensual touch, the demanding whisper, they hadn't just been manipulation, they had been an addiction. 6 months later, I was thriving. I had landed a massive promotion, my sleep was sound, and the hustle was back, fueled by self-respect, not frantic anxiety. I was at a trendy cocktail bar in a busy section of downtown, celebrating a major professional win with a few reinstated friends. I felt strong, guarded, and resilient. As I laughed at a joke, I glanced up, looking across the crowded room filled with the usual U.S. urban landscape of sleek suits and noisy celebration. And there he was. Or rather, there was someone, a man standing near the bar, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. His posture was authoritative, his hair dark, and his profile sharp. He wasn't Julian. I knew that logically, empirically, but his eyes, even across the distance, seemed to lock onto mine with an intense, familiar, proprietary gaze. It was the look of a man who didn't just see me, but saw the depth of my vulnerability and knew exactly how to exploit it. My breath hitched and the laughter died in my throat. My palms immediately grew clammy. For a horrifying, chilling second, I felt that familiar, desperate magnetic pull, that intoxicating urge to surrender to his silent authority. It was a muscle memory of emotional bondage. The moment passed. The man turned away, taking a sip of his drink. He was a stranger. But the jolt of fear and recognition remained. Julian was gone, but the knowledge of what I craved, that particular, dominating, secret love, was permanently etched into my DNA. I lifted my chin, forcing the fear back, but I knew the truth. I had won the battle, but the psychological war, the constant vigilance against the controlling gaze, would be my life's permanent work.